Welcome to the session on building resilience. My name is Ernie Antoine. In this video, I want to talk to you about building resilience to deal with the stresses of COVID-19. But before I do, I want to share with you a story about work that I did with survivors of the Great Asian Tsunami in Indonesia. At 7:59 a.m. on 26 December 2004, an earthquake registering 9.4 on the Richter scale struck outside the coast of Aceh in northern Sumatra. It was equivalent to 23,000 Hiroshima-type atomic bombs. Within 45 minutes, tidal waves as high as 30 meters were pounding the coastal villages of Aceh. The waves were traveling at 500 miles an hour. It only lasted about 30 minutes, but in that time, nearly 170,000 people lost their lives. People from all over the world scrambled to get aid to the survivors. I was called up by Oxfam Great Britain to support the humanitarian effort. As I came into land in Banda Aceh, the capital of the Aceh province, I looked out the window of my small Fokker friendship and saw the devastation caused by the tsunami. Villages were flattened as far as the eye could see. As I was being driven to my accommodation, my taxi driver pointed out to a mound where 1,500 unidentified bodies were buried. Soon after, I checked into the accommodation. I went out to see for myself the extent of the destruction. There was debris everywhere. In one of the villages a few kilometers inland from sea, there was a huge cargo ship planted in the middle where people once lived. It was as if somebody had picked up the ship and dropped it in the middle of the village. I wandered around and spoke to as many people as I could. Then in the distance, I saw a little boy sitting down on the dirt and playing with what looked like a toy. He had a blue peaked cap, which he wore off-center. He wore an orange top, brown shorts, and a pair of blue sandals. I approached him, but when I sat next to him, he was oblivious of my presence. I was just pleased to spend a few minutes with him. This is not just an isolated incident. The tsunami had ripped families apart. A few weeks later, I spent an afternoon with about 30 primary school teachers who were preparing for children to come back to school. I was making a presentation about trauma and stress and what to look out for in children. At the end of a presentation, one of the teachers tentatively put her hand up and said, "If the children felt like crying, what should we do?" She asked this question because in Acehese religious practices, crying for the dead is discouraged. They believe this will delay their passage to heaven. My response to them was this: I am not a religious expert, but I'm a psychologist, so I can share my knowledge as a psychologist with you. I said to them, if the children felt like crying, just let them, but hold them as they cry, because crying is a way of expressing their grief, loss, and trauma. And if you can hold them, they will feel connected and supported, and they won't be alone in their grief. I spent the next 3 years crisscrossing the province, counseling hundreds of survivors who had been traumatized. They all had lost families, friends, and livelihoods. But the thing that got them through was their connection to each other. It taught me two very important lessons. Firstly, in any adversity, we should always look out for each other. Secondly, we need resilience to see us through hard times. I feel privileged to have spent 3 years of my life with the Acehese people. Today, COVID-19 is also a catastrophic event. COVID-19 is not the Great Asian Tsunami. It's not going to kill hundreds of thousands of people in a matter of minutes. Nevertheless, COVID-19 has already taken the lives of 1 million people around the world. and many more are falling sick each day. The stress and trauma caused by this pandemic will grow each day until we find an effective vaccine. In the meantime, like the people of Aceh, we too have to learn to look out for each other and build our own resilience.